Hi and welcome to the NBA show. My name is Morten Jensen and today we'll be discussing Jrue Holiday's $160 million extension with the Milwaukee Bucks. So stay tuned. So before we get underway, just a smidge of house cleaning, housekeeping, whatever you want to call it, because last week I did a video about pick protection. It should be right here. Editor? Thank you. In that video, I told you about the 2021 and 2023 first-round draft picks that the Chicago Bulls are going to be sending the Orlando Magic in the Nikola Vucevic deal, which were top 4 protected. However, since that video, a few more details have leaked out about the protections on the draft picks, so that's why I'm keeping you a little bit updated here. So starting in 2021, the Chicago Bulls will be sending the Orlando Magic a top 4 protected pick. Of course, if that's not conveyed, should the Bulls make it to the lottery, should they jump up, that pick would not convey until the year later, but that year in 2022, it would actually be top 3 protected. And then if it's not conveyed in the third year, it converts to 2 second-rounders. That it holds true for the 2023 pick as well. So basically both are top 4 protected the first year, top 3 protected the second year, and if it hasn't conveyed either one at that point, it gets converted to 2 second-rounders. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit complicated. If the 2021 draft pick gets conveyed in 2022, then the 2023 pick protections shift over to 2024, and then in 2025, it will be top 3 protected. You know what? It's super complicated, but I think you catch my drift here. Point here being, the Bulls actually protected their draft picks even more than I thought, even more than most of us thought. It only cements my position that draft pick protections is super important. But you know what? With that out of the way, let's get to Jrue Holiday. So the Milwaukee Bucks extended point guard Jrue Holiday to a 4-year contract worth $160 million. Raw math tells us that that's $40 million a year. The last year is a player option, which means he can get out of it after 3 seasons if he so desires. Why would you if you're earning that type of money? That's probably a good question. Holiday is going to be 31 this year, so I'm expecting him to stay for the remainder of that contract. Now, I think the first initial reactions are a little bit telling just in terms of people who look at Jrue Holiday, look at that type of money and go, is that correlation wrong? What I mean by that is people are basically suggesting that Holiday is not worth that contract. And I'll be honest with you, it is a lot. It is a lot for Jrue Holiday considering age, considering that he's not a superstar, considering that he's not even a perennial all-star to the same extent as, for example, Giannis Antetokounmpo. But it doesn't really matter, because the Bucks are in it for the long haul here. They have built themselves a championship window that's going to last for at least another 3 seasons, presumably more because Giannis is still only 26, so there's room to grow still. If you look at it from this very raw perspective of, is Jrue Holiday worth $40 million a year? That's an impossible question to actually answer in the right way, because here's the thing. For the Bucks, yes, he's worth it. He was a big part of why Giannis re-upped with the Supermax, so you have to look at the big picture here. Jrue, Chris Middleton, Giannis, that's a winning formula. So for them, given that they are so close to making a finals appearance, yes, he's worth $40 million a year. Now, would Holiday be worth $40 million a year for the Orlando Magic, who've gone into a full-on rebuild? No, not even close. But it's just so hard to gauge because people have this idea that player values are somewhat independent. It's really not. Context matters a great deal when it comes to contract value, contract length, player age, player talent, roster construction. Everything is taken into account here. And the Bucks have looked at this roster and they have reached the conclusion that a trio of Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday is good enough to make a proper run towards the finals and maybe a championship within the next couple of years. Obviously, they also have Brook Lopez, they have Dante DiVincenzo, they have a lot of pieces there. Bryn Forbes, who's been good, Bobby Portis, they have a lot going on for them. So it's not just those three, of course, But those are the three main cogs in their offense, and on their defense, all three are two-way players. It stands to reason that at some point over the next coming years, the Bucks will make it to the finals. Ultimately, cap space doesn't win you ball games. Cap flexibility doesn't make you reach the finals or the playoffs. Players do. And when you have a superstar of Giannis's caliber, it is crucial that you make sure you have guys around him who are star caliber players, who can help him close out playoff games, who can help them cruise through the regular season. And right now, he has that component working for him in form of Middleton, Holiday, and all the role players that I talked about right before. So yes, for the Bucks, it's absolutely worth investing in that trio, in that core, because there's a target. Whereas with a rebuilding team, you don't really know where you're going. You're kind of making things up on the way. Like, sure, you have a plan, but that plan is highly depending on you getting the right type of guys in the draft, in free agency. Like, there are just so many question marks hovering around any team that's rebuilding, whereas with the Bucks, you have a known set of quantities here. You know the type of player that Jrue Holiday is. He's one of the best two-way point guards in the NBA, and I don't care if his stat line isn't as impressive as most talk about. Yes, 17 points, almost 5 rebounds and 5.5 assists. On the surface of it, it looks somewhat pedestrian, but it's not. Holiday's defense is utter elite. Now, he's not necessarily a knockdown shooter. He's not a guy who's going to come out and give you 15 assists on any given night, but it doesn't really matter. He's just a tone setter. He's a guy who can run an offense. He's a guy who can play off of Giannis. He's a guy who can play off of Chris Middleton. He has no problem not being the primary shot creator, shot taker. He's fine just being in that third role, and that matters. Having guys who accept roles and accept responsibilities and know full well what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, that's worth a lot, both financially speaking and also on the court. Holiday, while maybe not being a game changer to the same extent as Giannis, still has enormous influence on any given basketball game that he plays in. At 6'4", he can guard the 1, the 2, sometimes the 3. He can switch. He's a great communicator. He's a great team defender. He's a great individual defender. Like, we don't really talk a whole lot about Jrue Holiday's defense, and we really should, because it is phenomenal. So when you combine that with Giannis, who obviously was the Defensive Player of the Year last year, Middleton, who's a very stable two-way player as well, Brook Lopez, a great interior defender, you're looking at a team who not just this year, but also next year and the years coming up in 2022 and 2023, they could actually have one of the best defenses in the entire NBA, and in the playoffs in particular, they could completely strangle teams from a defensive perspective. If you're a team that doesn't really have an elite offense, odds are the Bucks are going to absolutely murder you and get out in transition and score. Holiday can run the break, Giannis we know can run the break, Middleton as well. They have so much versatility and flexibility by being this defensive-oriented unit that when you overall look at the Bucks, and you look at their cap sheet and you look at their current situation, you have to ask yourself this: what else could you have gotten? Where could you have pivoted to if not for sticking with Jrue Holiday, who you, by the way, gave up an absolute haul to get in? This was always going to come down to him re-signing or him leaving. And for Holiday, I actually think he made the right play here. Not just for locking himself up to this contract, but he took his time. He went into the organization, he kind of looked around, he spent roughly 40 games with them and kind of realized, okay, this is a place I want to be. I want to commit here. I want to be with Giannis. I want to be with Chris. I want to be with Mike Budenholzer. I want to be with this front office. I want this organization. I want to be part of that. There's another component here as well that we need to take into account. Let's say the Bucks did not extend Jrue Holiday. Let's say he left. That does not mean that they necessarily have cap space, because they are way over the salary cap as is. You don't get cap space if you're over the cap and a guy comes off the salary cap. It doesn't work like that. Then you have to ditch a whole lot of contracts in order to get below the cap, in which case you will have cap space. But this is not one of those situations. The Bucks had to extend him to get full money's worth, and they did. They're heavily invested now in Giannis, Holiday, Middleton, and yes, you could argue all day long if that trio is the right trio. I think that's fair because we don't know yet. We don't know if they can win a ring. We don't know what the future holds. Like that's up to debate. But in terms of how they spent their money, you can't complain about this. They had to do something. They had to make sure that they wouldn't lose a major chip of what they're trying to do right now. And make no mistake, Jrue Holiday is that. For them to retain him was completely logical and the right move all along. When you have someone like Giannis's caliber, the worst thing you can do is try to save money and kind of wait for a secondary superstar to become available. That's not how you do it. You have to be proactive. You have to make sure that you sacrifice the future in terms of draft picks so you get guys in who complement him on the basketball court. They did that. Now they've also retained him. I think this is a wonderful move for both parties. And again, you can scream until your head is blue that Jrue Holiday isn't worth $40 million a year. Doesn't matter. Again, they wouldn't have had cap space. If those were his salary demands and the Bucks were looking at this situation going, well, it's either pay him or lose him for nothing, in which case we would drop significantly in the East and also league-wide, this was the obvious result. Of course they went all in. It's Giannis Antetokounmpo. Of course they have to go all in. Anything else would have been a slap in the face to the two-time defending MVP. For now, it's all about making it to the finals and winning a championship. With all the contracts out of the way, the Milwaukee Bucks can finally focus on what's in front of them. The basketball court, the playoffs, the finals, the future. Now is their time. And Jrue Holiday is going to be a part of that. I think you should be really excited about that.